Imagine walking into your son's apartment, expecting to have dinner with him.
Yeah.
And you find a young woman dead.
Right.
And your son is missing.
Uh-huh.
That's the situation that Steve Herr found himself in.
Awful.
And the scene, well, it appeared to be staged to make it look like his son, Sam, was responsible.
Right.
We're diving into a case, a double homicide of Julie Kibuishi and Sam Herr.
Okay.
This case seemed open and shut at first, but it took these crazy twists and turns.
Yeah.
So we're left wondering, what really happened here?
It's a parent's worst nightmare to walk into that, and your son is the immediate suspect.
I can't imagine.
You can almost feel Steve's world just shattering in that moment.
Absolutely. And as we unpack this case,
Yeah.
we'll see how Steve's refusal to accept the easy narrative was really instrumental in uncovering the truth.
Really important.
But let's start at the beginning.
Yeah.
The initial investigation really focused on Sam's apartment.
Right.
What were some of the key findings that pointed to Sam as the suspect initially?
So the crime scene appeared to be staged to look like a sexual assault.
Oh, wow.
And that immediately kind of raises some red flags,
Yeah.
And then there were text messages on Julie's phone, and they seemed to be from Sam asking her to come over that night.
Right. Those text messages seemed pretty incriminating at first glance.
Yeah.
Plus, Sam had a history that made him an easy target for suspicion, right?
Yeah, he was a veteran and was struggling with PTSD after serving in Afghanistan.
Right.
And he'd even been charged with murder a few years prior,
Oh, wow.
although he was ultimately acquitted.
Right.
So given all of that, it makes sense that the police zeroed in on him.
Right, I see.
Yeah.
But Steve, Sam's father,
Yeah.
he just wasn't buying it.
Yep.
He felt that Sam wasn't capable of this.
Yeah.
So he started doing his own investigation.
Wow, interesting.
And that's really where things start to get interesting.
I was going to say, it's not every day you see a family member so actively involved in the investigation.
Right.
And actually challenging the police.
Exactly.
And Steve's persistence paid off.
Yeah.
He uncovered some inconsistencies in what Sam supposedly did that night.
Like what?
Well, there were ATM withdrawals and a pizza delivery order that didn't really fit with Sam being on the run.
Yeah, you're right.
Why would he be ordering pizza?
Right.
Why would he be withdrawing money if he was trying to disappear?
Yeah, good point.
It doesn't add up.
So Steve's skepticism was warranted.
It was.
The case takes a dramatic turn.
Yeah.
The police identify a teenager, Wesley, who was using Sam's ATM card.
Right.
This leads them to Dan,
Okay.
who was Sam's seemingly helpful neighbor and friend.
Right. And think about it. This is the guy that vouched for Sam
Oh, wow.
earlier in the investigation.
Yeah.
Saying that he was helping Sam with insurance fraud.
Right.
So, Dan's life seemed totally ordinary, involved in community theater, well-liked in the neighborhood.
It's hard to imagine someone like that doing something so sinister.
Exactly. Which is probably why, they continued to focus on Sam.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the investigation shifted to Dan,
Okay.
and they bring him in for questioning.
Right.
This is where it gets really intense.
Yeah. This is where we start to see Dan's facade start to crumble.
Right.
He initially sticks with the insurance fraud story,
Right.
but there are tons of inconsistencies.
Yeah.
And then he says that Julie was shot twice in the head.
Wait, wasn't it widely believed that she was only shot once?
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
That wasn't public knowledge.
Okay.
So that detail was something that only the killer would have known.
So that slip-up was a major turning point in the interrogation.
Huge. It was like his house of cards just collapsed.
That's amazing how one little detail can unravel an entire story.
Exactly.
What happened next?
Well, faced with all the evidence and his own slip-ups, he cracks.
Yeah.
And what he reveals completely changes the course of the investigation. He confesses to killing not only Julie, but also Sam.
Oh, my gosh.
So the investigators have been searching for a suspect who was actually a victim the whole time.
Wow, that's crazy.
It's a reminder that sometimes the person closest to the situation, the one offering support, can be the one orchestrating it.
So Dan confesses.
Yeah.
What does he say happened? Walk us through his confession.
Okay, so he lays out this horrifying plan.
Okay.
He lured Sam to the theater attic. Remember, he was involved in community theater?
Right, yeah.
And he shot him.
Oh, wow.
Then he staged the scene at Sam's apartment.
Right.
To make it look like Sam had killed Julie and fled.
How did Julie fit into all this?
That's the most disturbing part.
Yeah.
He killed Julie to cover up Sam's murder.
Oh, my goodness.
He wanted to make it seem like Sam had snapped, killed Julie, and then got on the run.
So Julie was collateral damage in Dan's scheme.
Tragically, yes.
And what about the writing on Julie's sweatshirt?
Oh, yeah.
All years.
Right. Even Dan doesn't have a clear explanation for that.
Wow.
It's just another layer of horror to this awful crime.
Yeah. And what about Sam's body?
Well, he confessed to dismembering Sam's body.
Oh, my God.
And scattering the remains.
Wow.
He even admitted to laughing during the dismemberment.
That's a disturbing detail.
It is.
What could drive someone to do that?
It's hard to understand. It suggests a level of detachment.
Right.
And depravity that's just, really hard to comprehend.
Right. He was living this double life.
Absolutely.
He was going about his daily routine.
Yeah.
Like nothing happened.
Performing on stage.
Right.
Hiding this dark secret.
It raises a lot of questions about his psychology.
A lot. Yeah. How could someone be so compartmentalized like that?
Yeah.
Commit these brutal acts and then just slip back into a normal routine.
Yeah. What was Dan's motive for all of this?
According to Dan,
Right.
It was money.
Really?
He wanted to steal Sam's savings.
Oh, wow.
And then frame him for Julie's murder.
Wow. So in his mind, Julie's life was worth less than the money he was stealing from Sam.
That's the sad reality of it.
Yeah. Julie just became a pawn in his scheme.
Yeah.
And her life was sacrificed to protect his. That's a stark reminder of the senselessness of violence.
Yeah.
And the ripple effects these crimes have on everyone.
Absolutely.
Dan wasn't the only one caught up in this web of deception.
Right.
The investigation turns to his fiancée, Rachel.
This is where it gets even murkier.
Right. There's mounting evidence that Rachel might have known more than she let on.
Uh-huh.
This case just keeps getting more complicated.
Yeah, we'll dive into Rachel's potential involvement after the break.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, we've got this seemingly average guy, Dan,
right,
who turns out to be a cold-blooded killer.
Right.
Murders his friend Sam, then kills Julie to cover it up.
Yeah.
And now the investigation is turning to his fiancée, Rachel.
Right.
What makes investigators start to question her involvement?
Well, her behavior during the investigation raised some red flags. Her statements to police were inconsistent. She seemed oddly calm after Dan confessed.
Yeah.
And then there were these testimonies from friends and witnesses that contradicted what she was saying.
Okay. Like, for instance?
Well, remember the man in the black baseball cap?
Yeah.
That she initially told police she saw leaving the apartment complex.
Right.
With Dan and Sam.
Yeah.
Later, she changes her story and says that Dan only told her about the man.
Oh, wow.
So she didn't actually see him.
So she was trying to create an alibi for Dan.
Right.
Even though it was fake.
Uh-huh. Exactly. And that inconsistency just makes you question everything else.
Right. Like, how much of her story can we actually believe?
Exactly.
What other inconsistencies did they find?
So Rachel initially claims that she was asleep.
Okay.
When Dan went upstairs to Julie's apartment.
Right.
But later she admitted to being awake and using the computer. And guess what?
What?
They checked her internet history and confirmed that she was online.
Okay.
It even showed that she messaged Julie just minutes before her murder.
She messaged Julie right before she was killed.
Yeah.
That's a big red flag.
It is.
It makes you wonder if she knew what Dan was planning.
It really does.
Yeah.
And then there's the testimony of their friend, Violet.
Okay.
She overhears Rachel telling Dan that he was messing up her story.
Oh, wow.
After Sam's disappearance.
So they were actively trying to cover this up.
Exactly.
It sounds very premeditated.
It does.
Like complicit.
Yeah, like more than just trying to protect him after the fact.
So we have Dan, who's the confessed killer.
Right.
And then we have Rachel, his fiancée, whose actions seem to suggest that she might have been more than just a bystander.
It's blurry.
Right. This is where it gets hard to tell.
It does.
Who's guilty and who's innocent.
Right.
Was she a willing accomplice?
Yeah.
Or was she just trying to protect the man she loved?
It's a really tough question.
It is. I can imagine a lot of people out there would sympathize with her situation.
Of course, it's easy to get caught up in the idea of love and loyalty.
Yeah.
Wanting to protect someone you care about.
Right.
Even if they've done something terrible.
But when does that cross the line into being a criminal?
That's what this case is really about.
Right.
It's forcing us to confront that gray area.
It's a moral and legal gray area.
It is.
What about the legal consequences for everybody involved?
Okay.
We know Dan confessed.
Yeah.
What happened to him?
Well, during the trial,
right,
he was facing 2 counts of murder. He was sentenced to death.
Oh, wow.
His brother, Tim, received a lighter sentence.
Okay.
3 years probation.
Okay.
For helping hide the murder weapon.
What about Tim's girlfriend?
Oh, right. Yeah. She was initially facing accessory charges as well.
Yeah.
But those charges were eventually dropped.
Okay.
It seems like the prosecution couldn't prove that she knew about the crimes. Yeah.
So they focused on Dan, Tim, and Rachel.
Uh-huh.
What happened with Rachel?
Well, her case was interesting.
Okay.
She said she was innocent the whole time, not guilty, to the 3 counts of accessory after the fact.
Okay.
However, the jury convicted her.
Oh, wow.
On 2 of the counts.
Okay.
And she was sentenced to 32 months in prison.
Wow. So a pretty significant sentence.
Yeah.
But a lot less than Dan.
Right. It seems like they believed she helped cover it up.
Right.
But wasn't directly involved in the murders.
Yeah. It's a tough situation. Makes you think what you would do.
It does. It makes you wonder what you would do.
If you were in a similar situation.
Yeah.
Caught between loyalty and the law.
This case shows us these moral dilemmas that true crime forces us to confront.
It really does.
There's no easy answer.
Right.
And the pressure in these situations can be huge.
This case has gotten so much attention over the years.
I think it's because it raises so many questions about, human nature and the choices we make.
Right.
When we're in these difficult situations.
We can't lose sight of the victims in all of this.
Absolutely not.
Dooley and Sam.
It's easy to get caught up in the twists and turns, the legal battles, the debate about Rachel.
Yeah.
But 2 young lives were taken.
Right.
And families were left grieving.
Julie was just starting her life. Yeah. She had so much potential.
Yeah. And Sam was a veteran. Served his country.
Right.
Trying to make a good life for himself.
And their lives were taken so senselessly.
It's hard to think about.
It is.
Julie's brother had to walk down the aisle at his wedding.
Oh, wow.
Without her.
That's powerful.
It really speaks to the loss.
It's a reminder that violence doesn't just impact the victims. It affects everyone around them.
Families, friends, communities.
And those effects continue long after
they do.
The trials are done, the sentences are given.
Yeah. And the families are left picking up the pieces.
Where do we go from here?
Yeah.
We've looked at the evidence, motives, the legal outcomes.
Right.
What's left for us to think about?
I think this case leaves us with this feeling of unease.
Yeah.
Like, we still don't understand why.
Right.
Especially why he killed Julie.
Yeah.
And the debate over Rachel's involvement continues.
What drives someone to do something like that?
Right.
How can we recognize that darkness in the people around us?
Yeah. And do we really know the people closest to us?
Yeah.
Can we ever really know what's going on in their minds?
That's a thought-provoking question.
It is.
That really sticks with you.
It does.
When you hear about cases like this, it makes you look at people differently.
It makes you question your assumptions about the people you think you know.
Yeah, and it reminds you that darkness can exist anywhere.
Anywhere.
It makes you wonder if you can really trust anybody,
Right. It really does. It brings us back to Rachel.
Yeah.
And that big question about her involvement.
Yeah.
If she didn't actually know what Dan was going to do, when does covering for him become a crime?
That's the dilemma that I keep coming back to. Yeah. Where's the line between loyalty and doing the right thing?
Right. It's like, imagine you're in that situation.
Right.
The person you love did this awful thing.
Yeah.
Do you protect them or do you tell the truth?
It's so easy to say that you'd go straight to the police.
Yeah, but when you're actually in that moment, faced with those consequences for you and the person you love, it's got to be a really tough decision.
Fear and loyalty are powerful,
They are.
And I don't think you can really know how you'd react until you're in that situation.
This case really gets at the heart of human nature, doesn't it?
It does. The good, the bad.
Right and wrong.
Yeah, the blurry lines.
It really makes you think.
So for anybody listening, the next time you hear about a crime like this, think about the human element.
Yeah.
The choices that people made.
Right. The ripple effect.
The questions that are left unanswered.
These cases aren't just about figuring out who did it.
Right.
They're about trying to understand people.
Right.
What makes them do these things.
Yeah.
And how it affects everyone involved.
It's a reminder that even when things are really dark, we gotta try to find the truth.
The truth.
Hold people accountable.
Absolutely.
And learn from these awful events.
Because they really do shape our world.
They do.